This chilling surveillance footage captures the final moments of 18-year-old Kelsey Smith. She's shopping at her local Target store, completely unaware of the danger quietly stalking her every move. But just a few minutes after leaving the store, she walked right into a nightmare, one that would end with her body hidden deep in the woods. And when detectives finally found her, what they uncovered wasn't just tragic, it was disturbing.
We found Kelsey, the sticks and branches over her body gave the impression that it might have been a sacrifice.
And that was only the beginning. This is the disturbing case of the 18-year-old high school grad murdered by a psychotic married man. Earlier that evening, June 2nd, 2007, 18-year-old Kelsey Smith hopped into her car and drove just 8 minutes to the local Target in Overland Park, Kansas. She had one mission: to pick out the perfect gift for her boyfriend, John. It was their 6-month anniversary, and she was so excited to celebrate. By 6:54 p.m., Kelsey was inside the store, casually browsing the aisles. Everything looked completely normal. A little after 7, she called her mom, cheerful as ever, and said she had found what she needed and was heading home. But she never made it. That call was the last time anyone ever heard Kelsey's voice. John's excitement quickly turned to worry when she didn't show up at home. Minutes stretched into an hour and still no sign of her. He and Kelsey's parents, Missy and Greg, started calling, texting over and over, but every attempt went straight to voicemail. And for Kelsey, that was unheard of. She was the kind of teen who would call if she was even 5 minutes late, just so no one worried, which made the silence all the more terrifying. Her parents knew something was very, very wrong.
When she wasn't responding, Greg started calling different police agencies and hospitals and so forth.
Her dad, Greg, a cop, felt it in his gut. He started calling around to police departments and hospitals, desperate for answers. Had there been an accident? Was his daughter lying hurt somewhere? Or was this something much darker? But every call came back the same: nothing. No one had seen her. 30 agonizing minutes ticked by before the family decided they couldn't sit and wait any longer. They jumped in the car and headed straight to Target. Maybe she was stranded in the parking lot. Maybe her phone had died. Maybe, just maybe, there was some simple explanation. But when they got there, nothing. No sign of her, not even her car. Panic set in. They started driving circles around the area, scanning every lot, every row, every corner, and then they saw it. Across the street in a nearby shopping center sat Kelsey's car, abandoned. Kelsey was gone. And Greg knew instantly, this wasn't just a late teenager, this was a crime scene. So where was Kelsey? What had happened in those lost minutes after she left Target? And the most chilling question of all, if she wasn't the one who parked her car here, then who was behind the wheel? Police arrived quickly and began going through Kelsey's car, hoping to find even the smallest clue that might explain where she had gone. Her purse was still there, along with the wrapping paper and the anniversary gift she had just bought at Target. Everything looked untouched. Inside the car, nothing seemed unusual. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no blood. But then something outside caught an investigator's eye: a strip of fabric sticking out of the trunk. Her family froze as their minds raced to the worst possibility. Could Kelsey be inside? When forensics opened it, she wasn't there.
When you don't see her, I dropped to the ground. Like, he just knew, this is serious. This isn't just, she's late or something.
And then when she wasn't there, it was like, so where is my child?
That was the question haunting everyone. Kelsey wasn't the type of teenager to disappear without warning. Just 9 days earlier, she had graduated from high school, excited to start her next chapter at Kansas State University. She dreamed of becoming a veterinarian, and her family described her as outgoing, headstrong, and loving. She was the kind of person who made everyone around her feel included. And now she had vanished into thin air. While forensics searched her car for answers, hoping it might hold the key to her final moments, detectives turned their focus to the people closest to Kelsey. But what they discovered left them stunned. Greg and Missy, her parents, were brought into an interrogation room. For now, they were treated as official people of interest in the case. It was standard procedure, but for grieving parents, it was devastating. The questioning did not last long, though. Detectives quickly realized they had nothing to hide. So if not her parents, then who? Investigators shifted to the person Kelsey had spent most of her recent days with, her boyfriend, John. On the surface, he seemed like the last person anyone would suspect. He was wholesome, steady, and clearly adored Kelsey. Even her family couldn't imagine him having to do anything with her disappearance. But detectives weren't willing to rule him out so quickly. Where exactly had John been before he showed up at Kelsey's house that night? Could he have played a role? They pressed him hard, asking the same questions in different ways, waiting for him to slip.
It was like tearing my mind apart why they were doing this.
But John stayed calm and consistent. He never contradicted himself. His story held up. And so 8 hours into the investigation, detectives were left with nothing. No leads, no suspects, no idea of what happened to Kelsey after she walked out of Target. Meanwhile, her family was growing desperate. Feeling like the investigation was moving too slowly, they decided to take matters into their own hands. Greg, Missy, and John organized hundreds of volunteers, splitting into search groups that canvassed the neighborhood, armed with stacks of missing person flyers. They knocked on doors and begged neighbors for any clue about Kelsey's whereabouts.
Keep her in your prayers. Kelsey, if you're out there watching us, we're coming. We're not going to stop until you're home. Nothing is going to stop us from bringing her back with us.
At the same time, authorities worked frantically to get Kelsey's cell phone records. Had she called someone? Was she secretly meeting up with someone that night? But strict privacy laws stalled the process, leaving investigators in limbo. So while they waited, detectives turned to the one thing they did have: Target's surveillance footage. And when they finally hit play, what they saw didn't bring relief. It only raised darker, more chilling questions. All 40 cameras inside the store had captured Kelsey's entire trip. At 6:54 p.m., Kelsey pulled into the parking lot. She stepped out of her car and headed toward the entrance. For a moment, she disappeared from view, but another camera quickly picked her up as she walked into the building. Detectives followed her every move. She strolled casually through the aisles, grabbed what she needed, chatted with the cashier, and headed back outside. Only 10 minutes after she arrived, she returned to her car, got inside, and pulled out of the space. On the surface, it looked like a completely normal shopping trip, but detectives knew better. Something must have happened between the Target parking lot and the shopping center where her car later turned up. The question was, what? Detectives realized they must have missed something, so they went back to the Target tapes, zeroing in on the exact moment Kelsey returned to her vehicle. That's when someone noticed it. A tiny, blink and you'll miss it, movement. As Kelsey circled around to the driver's side, a dark shadow darted across the frame. In less than a second, someone slipped behind her car. 12 to 15 seconds later, the vehicle backed out of the spot and drove away. The detectives froze. They couldn't believe what they had just seen.
We stood there in silence. Just, we looked at each other and said, it's kidnapping.
And now they faced the hardest task of all, telling Kelsey's family that their daughter hadn't just vanished, she had been taken. Even with the abduction caught on camera, detectives still had no name for the man who took Kelsey. But they knew one thing: he had to have been watching her long before she ever left the store. So they went back through the Target footage, and that's when they spotted him. Every time Kelsey showed up on camera, a man in a white t-shirt and dark shorts wasn't far behind. He never got too close, just enough to keep her in sight. When Kelsey headed for the checkout, he moved too, slipping toward the exit so he could get outside before her. And finally, they got what they needed: a clean shot of his face.
The surveillance video was very revealing. A white male was following Kelsey around the store, up and down several aisles, staying far enough back that she couldn't quite see that he was following her.
About 25 hours after Kelsey disappeared, police released his photo to the media. Slim, white male, short hair, white t-shirt. They hoped someone out there would recognize him. But instead of answers, they got chaos. Nearly 2,000 tips poured in. Following up on all of them would take weeks. And weeks were time Kelsey didn't have. So detectives went back to the tapes, and that's when they saw the part they had missed before. The man running up behind Kelsey, forcing her into her own car. Hours later, another camera across the street showed that same car pulling into the Macy's lot. At 9:17 p.m., the driver stepped out, calm, collected, and walked away. Kelsey was nowhere in sight. Detectives formed a new theory. Maybe he had ditched her car so he could pick up his own. And sure enough, 5 minutes later at 9:22, a dark pickup truck was caught leaving Target's lot. Could this be the suspect's truck? To be sure, they rewound the footage to the very beginning. At 6:54, Kelsey's car pulled in, and just 1 minute later, that same dark blue pickup followed. The cameras caught a glimpse of the driver. The shot wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. White male, short hair, white t-shirt. For the first time since Kelsey vanished, the police weren't just guessing anymore. They had a face, a vehicle, and a trail. But who was this man in the truck? And how long could he stay hidden before police caught up with him? Police received multiple calls from people who recognized the guy in the surveillance photos as their coworker, 26-year-old Edwin Hall.
Edwin Hall was sitting at work on a lunch break, and then the news comes on the television, and one of his coworkers says, "Isn't that your truck?" Looks inside the lunchroom. His truck's literally parked just outside the window.
Investigators pulled Edwin's driver's license photo, and the resemblance to the suspect in the surveillance footage was undeniable. But tracking him down wasn't simple. When his coworkers started asking questions, Edwin suddenly left work saying he felt sick. And with multiple addresses tied to his name, every location police checked turned up nothing. Then on June 6th, 4 days after Kelsey disappeared, a tip finally cracked the case wide open. A woman called in and said the man in the photo was her neighbor, a guy who went by Jack. Police rushed to the address. When they got there, they found Edwin, his wife, and their child packing boxes and bags into the car. He admitted that his real name was Edwin Hall and claimed they were just heading out on vacation. But detectives were not buying it. Something about the timing and the man himself told them there was much more hiding behind that story. So detectives secured a search warrant for Edwin's home, and what they found inside was far from the life of an ordinary family man. It was something much darker.
We did a search warrant at his house. He had a shrine for the Celtic religion in his basement.
And that wasn't the only disturbing find. Police also uncovered Edwin's MySpace page, and what he had written on there was chilling.
His interests eating small children and harming animals.
Edwin's history only made the situation darker. He didn't have an adult criminal record, but his juvenile file was filled with violence. He had been adopted at age 7, but by 15, he was sent back to state custody after threatening his adoptive family's daughter with a knife. Not long after, he attacked another boy, striking him in the head with a baseball bat. Soon after his arrest, more people began to come forward. A local waitress said he was the same man who had harassed her at work before skipping out on his bill. But compared to what investigators feared he had done to Kelsey Smith, theft was the least of their worries. At the police station, Edwin seemed cooperative at first. He even offered up his DNA and fingerprints, convinced it would clear him. When detectives showed him a picture of Kelsey, he denied ever seeing her. When they rolled the Target security footage, he admitted being in the store, but insisted he never actually saw Kelsey. Detectives pressed harder, and that's when Edwin finally cracked a little. He followed her in because, in his words, she had great legs. The remark left investigators disgusted. One later said it made his skin crawl. Even then, Edwin stuck to his story. He swore he never touched Kelsey after she walked out of that store. But while he talked, the lab results came back, and one of his prints matched a fingerprint lifted from the seatbelt inside Kelsey's car. That meant the shadowy figure in the grainy video wasn't just some mystery man. It was Edwin Hall. And now there was no denying he had been inside her car. Around the same time, Kelsey's phone records finally became available.
Eventually, Verizon sent a guy out to the last tower that her phone had contacted and was able to narrow the pie wedge of a search down to an area where cell phone could be found.
Authorities immediately launched a search near Longview Lake, a wooded park about 20 minutes east of Target. After just 45 minutes, their worst fear came true. Under a pile of branches, they discovered the nude body of a young woman. A nylon belt was still wrapped around her neck. DNA testing later confirmed what no one wanted to hear. The victim was Kelsey Smith. She had been essayed and strangled to death.
We were at the end of our driveway when we were told Kels was gone, that they had found her. And I just remember screaming, "Not my Kels, not my Kels."
I pull up right in front of my parents' house, and I see them sitting on the back of Dad's pickup, and they're just bawling. And seeing my dad cry like that. And they just gave us this look, and I just dropped to the ground and screamed, "No."
And here's where it gets even more unsettling. Detectives said the way her body was covered didn't look random. It looked ritualistic.
He wouldn't confirm it, but when we found Kelsey, the sticks and branches that were over her body were in a particular pattern.
It may have looked somewhat like a pentagram.
It gave the impression that it might have been a sacrifice for that religion.
With that discovery, police had enough. Edwin Hall was immediately arrested and charged.
Edwin R. Hall, 26, of Olathe, has been arrested for aggravated kidnapping and murder in the first degree.
The case had finally broken open, but detectives weren't prepared for what came next. Because when Edwin finally started talking, the details of his confession would reveal a darkness even more disturbing than anyone imagined. So Edwin was staring down the ultimate punishment for capital murder, and to save himself, he struck a plea deal and gave detectives a full confession of what really happened.
Edwin told me that Kelsey was just a crime of opportunity. He'd been trolling Oak Park Mall all day. He was approaching ladies, asking them odd questions. He was looking for particular behaviors, and that's how he found her.
He admitted that he had zeroed in on Kelsey that evening at Target because, in his words, she looked like a 12-year-old with nice legs. Yeah, that's literally what came out of his mouth. He watched her walk through the aisles, making sure she was alone, no friends, no family, no one to protect her. And when Kelsey finally headed to the exit, Edwin slipped outside, grabbed a gun from his truck, and waited until she was at her most vulnerable. That's when he pounced. He forced her into her own car, drove her 20 miles into the Missouri woods, where the unimaginable happened.
Kelsey was just his opportunity. She was at the Target. He thought she had nice legs and told Detective Miller that he thought she was 12 and that the evil just overtook him.
And here's the part that makes this even darker. Edwin wasn't some first-time offender who just snapped. Oh no, he already had charges pending for a 14-year-old girl. He even tried to argue that they had a consensual relationship. Disgusting. But after his guilty plea in Kelsey's case, prosecutors dropped those charges. But wait, it gets worse. Detectives suspected he had other victims. They even pressed him about murders across the Midwest.
We've asked Edwin Hall about other murders in the Midwest that he might be responsible for. And his reply was, no, I'm not responsible for any. This is my first time of killing someone. My police instinct tells me it's a lie.
Still, without any proof, they couldn't tie him to anything else. So the judge handed down the only punishment he could.
Life without any opportunity of parole.
When it was Edwin's turn to speak, he broke down crying and apologized to Kelsey's family.
I am so sorry for what I've done. That's it. That's all I can say.
But his apology meant nothing.
I don't know whether it was sincere or not. But kind of like everybody said in their statements, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything.
These kids knew her. It tells you what kind of person she was. It's all about her. And that was part of the reason for the plea, so we could get the focus off Edwin. He doesn't matter. Kelsey matters.
At the end of the day, that's the heartbreaking truth. Edwin doesn't matter. What matters is Kelsey and the beautiful life she should have had. Kelsey's murder didn't just devastate her family. It changed the law. The Kelsey Smith Act gave police faster access to phone data in emergencies. But here's the tragic reality. Even with that change, young women are still being stalked, kidnapped, and murdered. And no law has been able to stop it completely. Because monsters like Edwin Hall don't disappear when one case ends. They blend back into the world, hiding in plain sight. So the question we're left with isn't just about Kelsey, it's about all of us. Can we ever truly protect ourselves from the predators who are already watching?